Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 208 of our trip around the United States. We went ahead and pushed out of Tucson this morning, and right now we're starting from just outside of 3 Points. We actually had a second day planned for Tucson to give us a little bit more room in that slinky that I talked about, but I would much rather get to my brother's house with expediency, so we're going to skip that second day, now putting us 3 days ahead of the schedule. There are no new counties to be covering today. We have crisscrossed southern Arizona back and forth multiple times since this is my old stomping grounds. However, there's never been a reason for me to drop south along the border of Mexico because there's not very much down in this part of Arizona. But we need those DeLorme pages. So we are going to continue to push west out of this area all the way until we hit Fortuna Foothills, staying as far south in the state as possible, covering about 450 miles. Now we're covering that much distance today because those only stops are in the DeLorme pages, which are about an hour apart each. So for the most part, it's going to be a long day with long desert stretches and not a lot in between. That's okay though, because unlike that very long stretch between New Mexico and Arizona over 3 days, we have had quite a bit of time yesterday to get out of the car and stretch our legs and hike around a bit, including finishing our day off yesterday at the top of Tucson Hill, 1.5 miles over a 700-foot elevation gain. Aichan is still pretty tired from that, and she's going to be okay with us covering more miles today and less out of the car hiking. I expect that we will be able to hit the foothills before dark. If not, it's okay if we fall a little bit short because we'll just make up the rest in the morning before we turn north and head toward Vegas. So let's see what the day has in store. Come on, let's go. After circling around back through Tucson and coming down the I-8, we stopped at the West Pinal County Park. This park is like a geocaching oasis in the desert, featuring 168 acres of hiking trails, picnic areas, and campgrounds. I was happy to find a letterbox that used the orienteering style to guide you between cacti, fences, and trees as you make your way along the trails. Fascinated by each saguaro that we come across, a letterbox that has us paying close attention to these cactus is just perfect for me. Yesterday at the Saguaro National Park exhibit, we saw a model of a saguaro cactus that had an interior door that pulled open to show us the ribs of the saguaro. But what better opportunity than to get to see these things right here in real life too. You can totally see the structure inside the saguaro cactus. For the most part, except for this and a little bit of weathering down here at the bottom, it's actually in fairly good condition. Hopefully it'll bounce back and survive the elements. Most of these out here seem to have a little bit of damage like this, but overall are doing okay. Most, not all. This guy is definitely not faring all that well. As you can see, he's breaking down into lots of small pieces around him. You can see a lot of the interior and decay. Unfortunately, I don't think he's gonna make it. The saguaros here that are having problems appear to be suffering from bacterial necrosis. This is an unfortunately common condition found in the wild saguaro population and can be caused by a variety of factors. When left unchecked, the saguaro will eventually succumb to the necrosis. And clearly, this guy is beyond any hope of salvation. Thus is the life and death of the saguaro cactus. Aichan seemed to be happy taking this walk between the saguaro now before her afternoon nap was scheduled. This would help ensure that she slept well as we continued to fly through the miles between our targets. Each of the listings here employs the same cover strategy, using an old metal can and a pile of rocks to hide the geocache container underneath. This commonality made our job relatively easy as we were pretty distracted by the saguaros all around us. This consistency lent us confidence in the hunt for the letterbox, knowing that most likely at the end we would find a very similar hide style. All that time spent in the car to get here, and you would think Aichan would walk around a bit more. But as soon as we get to the ground zero and I kneel down to deal with the cache, she goes into standby mode and waits for me. But the second I show any movement away from the ground zero, she's gonna jump up and be ready to go. Ready for it? All right, here we go. I'm moving. Right on time. So the tricky part is we took the roundabout way to get to the letterbox here. She's gonna try and follow our original track, which is very circuitous. So instead, I'm gonna jump out in front of her and lead the correct way back without having to do the roundabout. After jumping off the interstate for our long jaunt south, we stopped off in Gila Bend to visit the 9/11 Memorial Park, centered around an 11-foot-long steel beam from the World Trade Center. As luck would have it, this was also one of the stages to an adventure lab that featured the metal sculptures around Gila Bend. This was exactly the excuse we needed to explore this little stretch of road through town and see some of the unique flavor it had to offer. It's not just any gas station after all that you'll find dinosaurs suffering from sticker shock. And after having spent the last 2 days here in South Arizona admiring the saguaro, it was nice to see that we're not the only ones who appreciate this majestic plant. Alas, we need to stop putting it off and make the long ride south to reach DeLorme Page 64, making our way first through Ajo. Once again, we were looking for a break through long stretches of road through the desert, so we decided to stop and explore this town a little further. As the closest community to Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, this was the last town that we would be seeing before we made the drop down to DeLorme Page 64, just north of the Mexican border. In addition to our physical geocache finds, we also allowed the adventure labs to lead the way, both through movie sites and murals. And this town is not lacking on those in the least. It has an exuberant street art community that represents a bold and colorful sign of this old mining town. For generations, Ajo was defined by its enormous copper mine before it came to a close in 1985. With many houses abandoned, it quickly became a mecca for RVers and snowbirders. Most of these fantastic creations came to life through the Tucson Mural Arts program. This initiative helped to bring muralists together from Tucson and the border region to enliven the town. Each piece inspires you as the viewer to interpret the art and understand the story being told behind the paint. In what otherwise seems like a very barren part of the Sonoran Desert, it's nice to have so much art and creativity here in this town to greet you. Enjoy a short stroll through several of the pieces featured here and drop down in the comments and let me know which one is your favorite. With no remaining distractions in front of us, it was time to get down to business and find the last geocaches we needed today. With a great camouflage job like this, I am really shocked I was able to find this hiding in the desert. I barely managed to spot it. There are only 2 physical options in DeLorme Page 64, so of course we had to go for them both, as we like to have 2 options in each of the counties and pages we stop in. As so often seems to be the case, the common theme for the remainder of our day was the suspicious pile of rocks. Pull up near the ground zero, take a quick scan of the area, and then follow the pile of rocks that calls to you. While this strategy worked for us at almost every ground zero, it did fail us at one. I was pleasantly surprised to see my expectations challenged and was rewarded for thinking just outside the box on this one. Success? We did it. We managed to cover down on the 450 miles we had ahead of us today, starting out of Tucson and working our way steadily west across the state of Arizona. We knocked out the last 5 remaining pages that we needed along the southern border of the state, including the very far out there DeLorme Page 64. Right now, we're on the edge of the Fortuna foothills, getting to enjoy a beautiful sunset. It looks like the sun is painting the mountains over the top of a canvas, and it is gorgeous. And we're driving right into it with the clouds in front of the sun. It is not blinding, it is just beautiful all the way through. We are not going into the Fortuna foothills, however. The Yuma Swag Mega event is coming up in a week's time, and we're gonna bide our time to come back down here right before that event kicks off. So for now, we're gonna head up to Las Vegas from here, about another 300-mile stretch, and we're gonna end our night there. When we wake up tomorrow morning, we will be in Las Vegas, where we'll be spending the next week in low power mode, waiting until the event comes. We're still gonna have daily videos coming your way for the next week, but the format's probably gonna look a little bit different than it normally does, as we're just gonna be going out once a day to have whatever our adventure may be. We've got to keep the dog active after all. And then we're gonna relax and hang out with my brother and see some other people in Las Vegas we know as well. But in a week from now, we are going to be kicking things back up with the Yuma Swag Mega and then working our way into California. Thank you guys for joining us today on this long drive across the empty stretch of desert that constitutes southern Arizona. It was actually a lot of fun, filled with pretty good finds, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.